Welcome back to Science in Sleeping. I'm so glad you're here tonight. It doesn't matter what kind of day you've had, whether it was filled with meetings and deadlines, or quiet moments and soft pauses. This is your time now. Your time to rest, to learn gently, and maybe to drift into dreams while your mind floats through new ideas. Tonight, we're going to wander into a world that is all around us, though often unnoticed, a world of quiet lives and slow secrets. Tonight, we're drifting into the hidden story of plants, the secret life of the green beings that share our homes, our streets, our forests, and our planet. You might look at a plant and see stillness, a tree, a flower, a simple leaf resting under the moon. But beneath that quiet, there is movement, conversation, memory, and even a kind of intelligence. Plants live on a timescale so different from ours that it feels invisible. But once we learn to slow down and pay attention, their hidden world begins to unfold. And tonight, I'll be your guide through that world. Step by step, I'll share their secrets in a calm, steady rhythm so you can simply listen and let go. Now, before we begin our journey, I want to remind you that this time is yours. You don't need to hold onto any of the information I share. You don't need to memorize, or focus, or even stay awake. You can let the words wash over you like the gentle sound of rain on a quiet night. If your mind drifts away, that's perfectly fine. If your eyelids grow heavy, that's exactly what I hope for. This space is meant for both curiosity and comfort. It is perfectly okay to drift between learning and dreaming. In fact, that's the magic of it. The part of your mind that listens and the part of your mind that sleeps can work together in peace. So, wherever you are right now, I invite you to take a moment. Notice your body. Notice if you're lying down or sitting back. Adjust your pillow. Let your shoulders fall a little lower. Let your breath grow just a little softer. This is your permission to rest, to set aside the weight of the day. You don't need to solve anything tonight. You don't need to be productive. Just be here. Let your thoughts slow down like clouds moving across the night sky. And if you'd like, take a slow breath in and then let it go. That's all. Before we dive into the hidden lives of plants, I'd love to build a small sense of community with you. One of my favorite things is imagining where you might be listening from. Perhaps you're in a city apartment where the hum of traffic lingers beyond the window, or in a quiet suburban home where a lamp glows softly by your bedside. Or maybe you're in a place surrounded by nature, where a night breeze carries the scent of trees and earth. Wherever you are, you're part of this moment with me, and with so many others, people around the world who tune in for comfort, curiosity, and rest. If you'd like, you can even let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is there. I find it beautiful to imagine this global circle of people, all connected by the simple act of listening and resting together. Now, let's settle in, get comfortable. Maybe pull the blanket a little closer. Maybe close your eyes if you haven't already. There's nothing you need to do. No task to complete, just the soft rhythm of words and the gentle unfolding of a story. And with that, let's begin our journey into the secret life of plants. Have you ever wondered what it might feel like to be a plant rooted in the soil, unable to walk or wander, yet somehow aware of everything around you? We often think of plants as passive, as decorations in our gardens and windowsills. But in truth, plants are sensing creatures. They can feel the warmth of the sun, taste the minerals in the soil, and even respond to touch. What would life be like if your entire body were one great sense organ? Picture yourself in a quiet meadow at twilight. The last golden rays of the sun are stretching across the tall grass. You feel the coolness of evening arriving, while the plants around you turn their leaves to catch every final drop of light. The air is soft, carrying the smell of earth and wildflowers. Imagine being one of those plants, not needing to chase the light, simply receiving it, storing it, and thriving in stillness. The world slows down when you imagine the life of a plant. Time stretches, sound softens, and everything begins to feel calm. This is the world we're about to step into, the quiet, sensory life of plants. Plants may not have eyes, ears, or skin the way we do, but they sense their environment in extraordinary ways. For example, plants can detect light through specialized pigments called photoreceptors. These pigments don't form images, but they allow plants to know the direction, duration, and even the color of light. Imagine if instead of seeing a picture of the sun, you could simply feel its presence across your entire body. That's how plants live. They know when days are growing longer or shorter, guiding their blooming and resting cycles. Did you know that some plants can even sense gravity? Tiny grains within their cells shift with movement, telling roots to grow downward into the soil and stems to grow upward into the air. This silent awareness is how seedlings find their way without a map. And then there's touch. Climbing vines curl around branches when they sense contact. The shy mimosa folds its leaves when brushed. All of this happens without nerves, without a brain, but with a subtle intelligence woven through their tissues. It makes us rethink what it means to be aware. When we pause to imagine the life of plants, we realize they are not silent statues, but quiet witnesses. They feel the pull of gravity, the warmth of light, the brush of wind. They know the rhythms of the earth in ways we can only glimpse. Perhaps plants teach us something about patience, about the art of receiving rather than chasing. In their stillness, there is wisdom, the wisdom of waiting, of leaning toward what nourishes. And in the hush of night, when leaves fold and flowers close, we are reminded that rest is also part of living. Just as we lie down now, so do the plants rest in their own secret ways. There is comfort in knowing we are never truly alone, even as we drift toward sleep. The world is breathing with us, leaf by leaf, and so we've seen that plants live in constant dialogue with their surroundings, sensing light, touch, and gravity in ways that stretch our imagination. But sensing is only the beginning, because once a plant perceives the world, it must also find a way to communicate. How does one plant whisper to another? Without words, without sound. In our next journey, we'll listen closely to the secret conversations of plants, carried on the wind and woven through the soil. Have you ever wondered whether plants talk to each other? It sounds like something from a children's story. Trees whispering in the night, or flowers sharing secrets under the moon. But what if I told you that science has discovered a hidden language among plants? Not words, not sounds, but signals so subtle most of us never notice. Imagine a forest where every tree is quietly connected, sending messages through air and soil. What are they saying, and why? The answer reveals one of the most astonishing mysteries in the natural world. Picture yourself walking through a dark forest just after sunset. The air is cool, and the trees stand tall like ancient guardians. You pause for a moment, listening. At first, you think the forest is silent, but then you begin to sense that something is happening all around you. A faint vibration, like the hush of a distant conversation. The leaves above seem to quiver in the night breeze. The soil beneath your feet feels alive, as though it carries invisible currents. You cannot hear it with your ears, but somehow you know that the trees, the grass, even the moss, are sharing messages with one another. The forest is not still. It is alive with silent communication, and tonight, we are going to step inside that hidden world. We are going to listen, not with ears, but with imagination, and discover the ways in which plants quietly speak to one another. Plants communicate in ways that often feel like science fiction. One of the most astonishing is through chemical signals released into the air. When a leaf is bitten by an insect, the plant releases special molecules that drift on the breeze. Nearby plants detect these signals and respond by strengthening their defenses, producing bitter compounds or toxins that make them less appetizing. It's as though one tree cries out a warning, and the others listen, preparing themselves for danger. Scientists have tested this by placing insects on one plant and then isolating another plant nearby with only air flowing between them. Remarkably, the untouched plant began producing defenses too. It had heard the distress signal carried on the wind. This kind of invisible warning system is happening all around us, every day, and we rarely notice. But the air is not the only pathway. Beneath the ground, another network hums with life. The soil is not just dirt, it is a living web filled with fungi. These fungi weave threads through the earth, connecting roots from one plant to another. Scientists call it the mycorrhizal network, but some have nicknamed it the wood wide web. Through these underground threads, plants share resources like carbon and nutrients, but they also send distress signals if one tree is sick or under attack. Its roots send messages through the fungal network, warning its neighbors. In some cases, strong trees even send extra nutrients to weaker ones, keeping the forest alive as a community. It is a kind of cooperation we rarely see so clearly in the animal world. Did you know that experiments have shown mother trees, the largest, oldest trees in a forest, nurturing their seedlings through this underground web? When sunlight cannot reach the forest floor, young saplings receive sugar delivered by their parent tree. It is an invisible act of generosity, happening quietly beneath our feet. Plants also use sound in surprising ways. Recent studies suggest that roots can detect vibrations. When scientists played the sound of running water, roots grew toward it, even when no water was present. Some researchers even suspect that plants may produce faint clicking noises of their own. Like whispers we cannot yet decode, the full meaning of these sounds remains a mystery. But they hint at a hidden richness of communication, still waiting to be understood. When we step back and imagine this trees releasing scents into the air, roots whispering through fungi, leaves trembling with signals, the whole world of plants feels transformed. They are not isolated, silent beings. They are part of a vast, connected community. Every garden, every forest, every patch of grass is alive with conversations. If we pause and imagine this secret language, it changes the way we see the world. Suddenly, the air around us feels less empty. It carries messages, warnings, and even offerings, invisible to our eyes. The soil beneath us is no longer just ground, but a great tapestry of threads carrying whispers of cooperation. A tree is not just a tree, it is part of a family, connected to others by bonds we cannot see. Perhaps the forest has always been speaking, and we have only just begun to listen, and in this thought lies a quiet comfort. We are never as alone as we imagine. Even the plants in your room, or the trees along your street, may be whispering to one another in their own way. A hidden dialogue, a conversation without words. Perhaps this is why we feel calm among trees, why a walk in nature eases our stress, because we are stepping into a community that has always existed, a gentle society built not on competition, but on sharing. The forest does not rush, it does not shout, it communicates softly, in patience, in stillness, in time, and maybe, just maybe, this is what the plants teach us, that true strength is not in noise or speed, but in connection, in the slow, steady sharing of life. And so, we've discovered that plants are not silent. They speak through air and earth, through invisible signals carried on wind and soil. They are part of a web of connection so deep, we are only beginning to understand it. But what do these conversations truly achieve, beyond warnings and cooperation? Do plants have something more, a way of remembering, of learning from the past? In our next journey, we will explore the mysterious question of plant memory and discover whether these quiet beings can truly keep the stories of time. Have you ever wondered whether plants have memories? It sounds impossible at first, doesn't it? We're taught to think of memory as something that belongs to animals with brains, with neurons, with minds. But plants have none of these things. And yet, time and again, researchers have found evidence that plants can remember. They can recall experiences, learn from them, and even change their behavior in the future. What would it mean if a tree, a flower, or a blade of grass could hold on to the past? What would it mean if the world around us was filled with quiet, ancient memories? Picture yourself sitting in a garden at night. The air is cool and fragrant, the sky sprinkled with stars all around you. Plants sway gently in the soft wind. Some are closing their blooms. Some are leaning toward the faint silver light of the moon. As you sit there, you begin to imagine the garden not just as a place of beauty, but as a place of memory. The flowers you see may remember the warmth of yesterday's sun. The tree nearby may remember last year's storms. The vines curling along the fence may remember which direction they once climbed. You begin to sense that every leaf and stem is quietly keeping track of time, that the garden is more than alive, it is aware. And as you let that thought sink in, the stillness becomes deeper. Because what if, as you drift toward sleep, the plants around you are gently recalling their own histories? The idea of plant memory has fascinated scientists for decades. Unlike animals, plants do not have brains or neurons, yet they show behaviors that suggest they can remember past experiences. One of the earliest and most famous experiments was done with the mimosa plant, the one that folds its leaves when touched. Researchers dropped water gently onto the plant's leaves. At first, The mimosa closed its leaves tightly, as if protecting itself. But after many repetitions, the plant stopped reacting. It had learned that the water drops were harmless. Even more astonishing, weeks later, when the same plant was tested again, it still remembered the lesson. It kept its leaves open, as though recalling, "This is safe." This ability is called habituation, and it is considered a basic form of memory. What makes it remarkable is that it happened in a plant without a brain. The mimosa had stored information and used it to change its behavior over time. But the mysteries go deeper. Plants also remember the seasons. Consider the process where plants must experience winter cold before they can bloom in spring. Seeds or young shoots record the memory of cold temperatures. When the warmth returns, they know it is safe to flower. Without this memory, plants might bloom too early and be destroyed by frost. It is a survival mechanism written into their very cells. On a microscopic level, plant memory often lives in their DNA and proteins. Through a process called epigenetics, plants can turn certain genes on or off based on past experiences. For example, if a plant survives a drought, it can remember the stress by leaving marks on its DNA. These marks don't change the genetic code itself, but they influence how it is read. The next time drought comes, the plant responds faster, stronger, more prepared. Incredibly, sometimes these memories are passed to the next generation. The children of a plant may carry echoes of their parents' struggles. It's as though the lessons of survival are whispered forward through time. There are even signs that plants can remember direction. A climbing vine, once trained around a support, will continue to curl in that same pattern even after being moved. The memory of its path lingers, guiding it forward. And some research suggests that roots, when encountering obstacles, learn to avoid them in ways that persist for days. Did you know that plants also keep daily time with astonishing precision? They have what scientists call circadian rhythms, internal clocks that remember the cycle of day and night. Even if placed in total darkness, many plants will still open and close their leaves, keeping time as though they had a memory of the sun. These rhythms guide not only growth, but also the release of scents, the unfolding of petals, and the movement of leaves. It is memory written into rhythm, pulsing steadily with the earth's rotation. And here lies the suspense. If a plant can remember experiences, seasons, stresses, and even times of day, then perhaps our definition of memory has always been too narrow. Maybe memory is not just a human gift, not just a feature of animals with brains. Maybe memory is a fundamental property of life itself. When we think of memory, we often imagine stories, names, and faces stored in our minds. But memory is more than that. It is the act of carrying the past into the present, of letting what has been shape what will be. In this way, plants are keepers of memory. A flower remembers winter's frost before it dares to bloom. A tree remembers storms in the way its branches grow. A seed remembers the struggles of its ancestors, carrying that wisdom into the future. Perhaps this is why being among plants feels grounding, because they are living archives of time. Every ring in a tree's trunk is a page in its memory. Every curling vine is a sentence written in green. Every seed is a story yet to unfold. and though their memories are not like ours, they remind us of something essential, that we, too, are shaped by experiences we cannot always see, that life itself is a tapestry of remembering and becoming. So, as you lie back and breathe softly, imagine yourself as a tree, your roots holding memories of the soil, your leaves remembering the light, your very being shaped by the quiet persistence of time. And as you drift closer to sleep, feel comfort in knowing that you, like the plants, carry the wisdom of what has been, and that wisdom is enough to guide you gently into tomorrow. And so, we've seen that plants can remember, not through minds or brains, but through rhythms, chemistry, and the quiet persistence of their bodies. They are living libraries of time, carrying lessons from season to season, from parent to child. But memory is only part of the story. Because what happens when plants dream of the future? How do they grow, decide, and reach for the unseen? In our next journey, we will explore how plants move, plan, and stretch toward light and life with a wisdom all their own. Have you ever wondered how a plant knows where to grow? How a seedling, hidden in the dark soil, finds its way upward? How a vine seems to reach out and choose a branch to climb? Or how a sunflower can slowly follow the sun across the sky? At first glance, it seems impossible. Plants cannot walk, they cannot run, they cannot see as we do, and yet they move with purpose, with direction, sometimes even with something that feels like decision-making. Could it be that plants, in their own way, are choosing paths and shaping their futures? Imagine yourself lying in a meadow at night. The stars shimmer softly above, and the plants around you seem perfectly still. Yet, if you could watch them not for minutes, but for hours, their hidden movements would slowly come alive. You would see flowers closing gently, their petals folding inward like whispers. You would see stems stretching subtly, leaves adjusting their angles, vines curling ever so slightly. The meadow, which seemed frozen in silence, is in fact flowing with motion too slow for your eyes to catch. Now, imagine time speeding up, like a film played in fast motion. Suddenly, you would see the sunflowers swiveling their faces from dawn to dusk, the vines wrapping themselves around supports, the shoots of grass bending toward the light. What seems like stillness becomes a dance, deliberate and precise. And this dance raises a mysterious question. How do plants know where to move? Plants move in ways that are subtle but astonishing. Their movements are guided not by muscles, but by growth and the shifting of water within their cells. One of the most familiar movements is phototropism, the ability of plants to grow toward light when light shines on one side of a plant. Hormones called auxins gather on the shaded side. These hormones cause the shaded cells to grow longer, bending the stem toward the light. It is as if the plant is reaching, not randomly, but with purpose. Another form of movement is gravitropism, the way roots grow downward and stems grow upward. Inside the root tips are tiny grains called stata, which settle in response to gravity. They act like internal compasses, telling the roots which way is down. No matter how you turn a seedling, it will always reorient itself. Roots digging into the soil, stem rising toward the sky. This silent sense of direction ensures survival. But light and gravity are only part of the story. Plants also respond to touch, a phenomenon known as thigmotropism. Climbing vines and tendrils curl when they encounter a surface, wrapping themselves around it for support. This allows them to climb higher, closer to the light. What is remarkable is that plants remember where they have touched before, adjusting their movements to avoid obstacles. It is not random, it is strategic. Perhaps the most mesmerizing examples of plant movement are in plants that act almost like animals. The Venus flytrap snaps shut in less than a second when its sensitive hairs are triggered. This requires precise timing and decision-making. The trap does not close unless two hairs are touched within about 20 seconds. This prevents the plant from wasting energy on raindrops or debris. It is as though the plant is counting, waiting for confirmation before acting. Other carnivorous plants, like Scince, move their sticky tentacles slowly around captured prey, coiling in to digest their meal. These are movements of intention, of patience, of strategy. Did you know that sunflowers not only follow the sun across the sky, but also reset themselves at night? Young sunflowers turn eastward by dawn, anticipating the sunrise. It is not just reaction, it is prediction. They are keeping time, remembering yesterday, and preparing for tomorrow. This rhythm is driven by their circadian clocks, an internal memory of day and night. Their movement is both physical and temporal, guided by both the present and the past. Plants also make choices that look remarkably like decisions. When roots grow through soil, they can sense moisture, nutrients, and even the presence of other roots. They often grow toward water, a behavior called hydrotropism. But if the soil contains both water and toxins, the roots seem to weigh the options, sometimes choosing the safer path, even if it means less water. This suggests that plants are not simply reacting, but integrating information, making trade-offs, as though they were solving problems. Experiments with pea plants have shown they can even anticipate where light will appear. When trained with a fan that always blew before the light turned on, the plants grew toward the fan alone. They had learned to associate one signal with another, just as animals do. This is a form of associative learning, a behavior once thought impossible without a nervous system. Step back and imagine this. A plant growing in the soil is not blind, not lost, not passive. It is sensing light, gravity, touch, water, and even signals from other plants. It bends, turns, curls, and stretches with intention. And though it may move slowly, its choices shape entire forests, entire ecosystems. When we think of movement, we imagine footsteps, wings beating, rivers rushing. But there is another kind of movement, one that is slower, quieter, but no less powerful, the movement of plants. Every turn of a leaf is a gesture toward survival. Every curling vine is a search for connection. Every root digging deeper is a choice made in silence. Perhaps plants teach us something about patience. That movement does not always need to be quick to be meaningful. That decisions made slowly can be just as wise. The sunflower waiting for dawn reminds us that anticipation is its own kind of strength. The vine climbing steadily reminds us that persistence builds bridges where speed cannot. The root choosing safety over danger whispers that sometimes restraint is the wisest path. And in this thought there is comfort, because, like plants, we too make choices. We to reach for light, navigate obstacles, and stretch toward what sustains us. Often, we cannot see the progress in the moment, but over time, our lives bend and curve with meaning. Just as a tree grows unseen each night, so too do we grow quietly within. As you listen now, imagine yourself as a plant, not rushing, not worrying, simply moving slowly, purposefully, with the rhythms of nature. Feel the calm of knowing that even the smallest gestures carry meaning, that like the plants, you are always moving, always growing, even when it feels like stillness. And so, we have seen that plants move with intention, guided by light, gravity, touch, and even memory. They bend, curl, and stretch in ways that reveal hidden choices. But movement is not the end of the story, because beneath their quiet gestures lies something even deeper. Plants are not only movers, but also builders, shaping entire ecosystems around them. In our next journey, we will explore how plants create worlds, forests, gardens, and hidden sanctuaries where countless lives depend on their silent architecture. Have you ever wondered who builds the very stage upon which all life performs? We often think of animals, of humans, or of the earth itself shaping the world we live in. But what if the true architects of our ecosystems are the plants? Without them, there would be no forests, no meadows, no jungles, no gardens. They do not hammer or carve. They do not build with stone or steel. And yet, silently, patiently, they construct entire worlds. What hidden blueprints do they follow? And what secrets lie in the architecture of green? Imagine yourself entering a forest at twilight. The air grows cooler. The shadows stretch long between the trunks of towering trees. Above, branches weave together like the beams of a great cathedral. Below, ferns unfurl in spirals. Mushrooms glow faintly in the dim light. Moss carpets the stones and fallen logs. It feels as though you have stepped inside a living temple. And in truth, you have. This forest is not random. It is not chaos. It is a carefully built structure, crafted not by chance, but by the plants themselves. The tallest trees reach upward, pulling sunlight from the sky. Their branches create shade that allows smaller plants to thrive beneath. The soil beneath your feet is alive because of the roots that weave it together. Every leaf, every stem, every fallen twig has a place in this architecture. The forest is not merely a collection of trees. It is a living city, a layered, breathing design, and the architects, the builders, are the plants. Plants shape ecosystems in ways that are both visible and hidden. The most dramatic example lies in forests, where towering trees create what scientists call vertical stratification. The canopy, the understory, the forest floor, each layer is designed and maintained by plants. In the canopy, broad leaves absorb the most sunlight, while blocking and filtering the rays that reach below. This shading creates a softer world beneath, where shrubs, vines, and ferns thrive in gentler light. At ground level, mosses, fungi, and seedlings find niches in the cool, damp. Without trees stretching upward, this layering would not exist. Plants are not only participants in ecosystems, they are the very architects of space. But their architecture is more than physical. Through photosynthesis, plants create the oxygen we breathe. They are the foundation of food webs, turning sunlight into sugars that feed herbivores, which in turn sustain predators. Every bite of food, every breath of air, is a gift of architecture from plants. Plants also engineer soil itself. Roots weave through earth, breaking apart rocks into minerals. Fallen leaves and decaying would return nutrients to the ground over centuries. Plants build fertile soil where once there was only barren stone. Without this slow construction, life, as we know it, could not persist. Consider the mangrove forests along coastline. These plants do not simply grow in the water, they shape the shoreline. Their roots anchor the soil, preventing erosion. They create nurseries for fish, crabs, and countless marine creatures. They even soften the impact of storms, protecting entire communities from flooding. Without the architecture of mangroves, coasts would crumble, and oceans would lose their abundance. Or think of deserts, where hardy plants like cacti and shrubs play a different role. Their roots hold what little water exists, preventing it from evaporating. Their bodies store moisture, offering life in a place of scarcity. And when they bloom, even for a short season, they bring pollinators, birds, and small mammals to the landscape. In this way, plants create oases where otherwise there would be only silence. Did you know that some plants are even called keystone species? These are the architects without which entire ecosystems collapse. For example, giant kelp forests in the ocean, though made of plants of the sea, provide shelter and food for hundreds of species. Remove the kelp, and the entire ecosystem fades away on land. Large trees like oaks and baobabs serve similar roles. They provide food, shelter, and structure, shaping the very identity of the landscape. Plants also construct invisible networks. Through their roots and fungal partners, they distribute water and nutrients. They recycle carbon, nitrogen, and countless other elements. They weave cycles that keep life in balance. We often see ecosystems as shaped by climate or geology, but in truth, plants are co-creators. They respond to the environment, yes, but they also transform it. The Amazon rainforest, for example, produces much of its own rain. Through the process of transpiration, trees release water vapor, which rises into the atmosphere and forms clouds. These clouds return as rain, feeding the very forest that created them. It is architecture, not only of space, but of weather, of climate, of planetary systems. Step back for a moment. The air you breathe, the ground you stand on, the shade above your head, all of these are designs crafted by plants. Slow, steady, patient, their architecture is not built in years, but in centuries, millennia, even eons. If you walk into a forest, a desert, or a garden, you are walking inside a masterpiece, a cathedral of green, built without hammers, nails, or blueprints. The architects do not speak, yet they design with light and water, soil and air. Each tree is a pillar, each leaf a window, each root a foundation stone. The world is not built by machines alone, but by the quiet labor of plants. And in this realization lies a kind of awe, because we, too, are shaped by this architecture. The oxygen filling your lungs was once sunlight caught by a leaf. The food nourishing your body was once energy pulled from the sky. Every breath, every heartbeat is connected to the work of plants. Perhaps that is why we feel small and yet safe beneath towering trees. Why gardens soothe us, why meadows call us to rest. Because we are stepping into spaces designed not just for beauty, but for balance, spaces where life flows together, spaces that remind us that we are not separate from nature, but within it. As you close your eyes tonight, imagine yourself in a forest cathedral, the air cool, the canopy vast, the soil alive beneath your feet. Feel the comfort of being held within something larger, an architecture so vast it spans continents, so gentle it whispers through leaves, and so patient it has been building since long before you were born. And so, we see that plants are more than participants in nature. They are its architects, shaping soil, air, climate, and the very spaces where life can thrive. But building a world is not enough. For life to continue, there must be renewal. Plants are not only architects, but also guardians of cycles. They create, they decay, they give, they take. In our next journey, we will explore how plants orchestrate the eternal cycles of life and death, and how their quiet rhythms sustain the heartbeat of the earth itself. Have you ever wondered what happens when a plant dies? When its leaves wither, when its trunk falls, when its roots release their hold on the earth? It may seem like an end, a quiet conclusion to a green life, but in truth, it is only the beginning of another story. Plants do not live in straight lines. They live in circles. Every sprout, every bloom, every fallen leaf is part of an ancient rhythm. What mysteries lie in these cycles? And what secrets do plants know about renewal that we have yet to understand? Picture yourself walking through a meadow at dusk. The air is soft, the horizon glows with fading light. Around you, grasses sway gently, their seed heads nodding with the evening breeze. At first glance, the meadow feels eternal, as though it has always been and always will be. But look closer, and you will see a different story. Some stalks stand tall and green, alive with energy. Others are bent, brittle, fading back into the soil. A flower that bloomed bright just days ago now drops its petals one by one. Yet scattered nearby, tiny seeds wait to take root. This meadow is not a static picture. It is a moving cycle, a dance of growth, decay, and renewal. The plants are both the dancers and the stage. They rise, they fall, they return to the earth. And from their return, new life always begins again. The life of a plant is a cycle written in the language of time. It begins with a seed, small, quiet, unassuming. Inside that seed lies a blueprint, DNA, nutrients, potential waiting to awaken. When water, warmth, and light arrive, the seed, pushing roots downward and shoots upward. This is the first arc of the cycle, birth and growth. But growth cannot last forever. Plants face seasons, storms, predators, and the limits of their own design. Some live only weeks, like delicate wildflowers. Others endure for centuries, like towering redwoods, yet whether short or long. Every plant eventually reaches decline. Leaves yellow, stems weaken, roots falter, and then death arrives. But here is the secret. In the plant world, death is never simply an ending. It is a transformation. A fallen leaf does not vanish. It decomposes, releasing nitrogen, phosphorus, and other nutrients back into the soil. These nutrients become food for microbes, fungi, and insects, which in turn enrich the earth for new seeds to sprout. What looks like loss is in truth a handoff, the energy of one generation passing into the next. Did you know that entire ecosystems depend on this recycling? In a forest, for example, the litter layer of fallen leaves and branches is as essential as the canopy above. Without it, soil would starve, microbes would wither, and new plants would struggle to grow. The floor of the forest is like a grand dining hall, where the remnants of the old are served as nourishment to the new. There is also the mystery of fire. In many ecosystems, plants have adapted not only to endure fire, but to depend on it. Pine cones that will not release seeds unless scorched, grasses that regrow stronger after burning. Fire clears space, returns nutrients, and awakens seeds that have waited for years. In these cycles, destruction is not the opposite of life, but part of it. And then there are the perennials, plants that die back each winter only to rise again in spring. To human eyes, this may feel like resurrection. Beneath the soil, roots remain alive, wading through the frost. When warmth returns, they surge upward, reminding us that dormancy is not death, but preparation. Even ancient trees participate in this rhythm. When branches break or trunks fall, they become nurse logs. These fallen giants, though dead, provide shelter, water, and nutrients for countless seedlings. In their decay, they cradle new forests. Death is not an erasure, but a foundation. On the microscopic level, plants recycle themselves in intricate ways. Cells die through processes like programmed cell death. Leaves fall at precise times to conserve water. Seeds scatter before winter to ensure survival. It is as though plants are not afraid of endings. They embrace them, weaving them into the design of life itself. Think of the great rainforests. When a giant tree falls, a shaft of light pierces the canopy. This opening, this gap, becomes an invitation. Vines, shrubs, and saplings rush into the light. The death of one tree becomes the opportunity for dozens more, and so the cycle continues, endlessly renewing, endlessly reshaping. We often fear endings. We see death as final, as silence, as loss. But plants remind us that endings are beginnings in disguise. A leaf that falls is a note in a larger song. A tree that collapses becomes the cradle of a new forest. The cycle is endless, the story unbroken. Perhaps that is why walking through a forest in autumn feels both sad and comforting. The colors blaze, the leaves fall, and yet we know they will return. Perhaps that is why seeds feel like symbols of hope, tiny reminders that even after death, life will rise again. In plants, there is no true waste. Every ending feeds a beginning. Every silence leads to a new sound. Every darkness is followed by light. And if we look closely, perhaps we can learn. Perhaps our own lives, too, are not linear, but circular. Perhaps what feels like loss is part of renewal. Perhaps we, like plants, leave behind nourishment for those who come after, not only in soil and seed, but in memory, in kindness, in the invisible roots of connection. As you rest tonight, imagine yourself as part of this eternal cycle. Feel the comfort of knowing that nothing is truly lost, that even the quietest ending is a beginning in waiting. The plants whisper this truth in every falling leaf, in every seed that bursts from the soil, and in every breath of air that carries their gift of renewal. And so, the cycles of life and death are revealed not as opposites, but as partners. Plants teach us that endings are not endings at all, but transformations, that every death is a gift, every fall a foundation in their cycles. There is no waste, only renewal. But plants do not walk these cycles alone, for as they grow and die, they carry with them intricate relationships, symphonies of connection with fungi, animals, and the unseen world beneath the soil. In our next chapter, we will explore the hidden partnerships of plants and the quiet alliances that shape the survival of entire ecosystems. Have you ever wondered if plants are truly alone? They seem so still, so self-contained, standing quietly in fields, forests, and gardens. But what if that silence is deceptive? What if beneath the surface, in hidden spaces, plants are engaged in partnerships so vast and so intricate that they rival the greatest networks ever built? What if every tree, every flower, every blade of grass is part of an alliance, a secret society of survival? Plants do not live alone. They are bound in relationships that shape not just themselves, but entire worlds. Imagine yourself walking into a forest at night. The moonlight filters through branches, silvering the leaves. The trees appear still, statues in the quiet darkness. But if you could listen beyond human hearing, if you could see beneath the soil, you would discover something astonishing. You would see threads of fungi stretching like glowing wires beneath your feet. You would sense the roots of trees touching, intertwining, exchanging messages. It would feel less like a forest of individuals and more like a city, a living network where resources are shared, warnings are whispered, and alliances are forged. The forest is alive with conversation, though not in words. This hidden world of partnerships reveals that plants are not solitary beings. They are collaborators in an endless dance of give and take. The most famous of these partnerships is the mycorrhizal network. Beneath the soil, fungi connect to the roots of plants, forming what scientists call the wood wide web. Through these fungal threads, plants exchange nutrients, carbon, and even signals. A tree in sunlight may send sugars through its roots to support a shaded neighbor. A plant under insect attack may release chemical warnings that travel through the network, alerting others to prepare their defenses. It is not competition alone that defines plants, but cooperation. Without fungi, many plants could not even survive. These partnerships stretch back 400 million years, shaping the very evolution of land plants. There are also the pollinators, bees, butterflies, birds, and even bats. These creatures form partnerships with flowers, carrying pollen from one bloom to another. In return, they receive nectar, food, and shelter. The dazzling colors of petals, the intricate shapes of flowers, the delicate timing of blooms, all are designed for these alliances. Without pollinators, most flowering plants would fail to reproduce, and without plants, pollinators would vanish. It is a partnership so essential that the collapse of one side threatens the other. Plants also form secret alliances with animals. Consider the acacia tree and the ants that live inside its hollow thorns. The tree provides shelter and sweet nectar. The ants, in return, guard the tree, attacking any herbivore that dares to nibble its leaves. Together, they thrive in a balance of mutual defense and survival. Or think of fruiting plants. Their strategy is to entice animals with sweetness, with color, with nourishment. Birds eat the fruit, and in doing so carry seeds across miles. The plants rely on these messengers to spread their lineage. Every orchard, every hedgerow, every forest owes its abundance to these silent couriers. But some partnerships are strangers still. There are plants that trap insects, not for pollination, but for survival. Carnivorous plants like pitcher plants and Venus flytraps form unusual alliances with their environment. They live in nutrient-poor soils, where traditional strategies fail, so they lure insects, capture them, and digest them in some cases. Even microbes help with this digestion, a partnership that allows survival in the harshest places. There are even plants that partner with bacteria. Legumes, for example, host nitrogen-fixing bacteria in nodules on their roots. These bacteria transform nitrogen from the air into forms the plant can use. In return, the plant offers sugars and shelter. This alliance is one of the reasons humans have been able to cultivate rich agricultural fields. Without it, the soil would quickly run barren. Did you know that some trees recognize their own kin? Experiments show that seedlings growing near relatives often share more resources than with strangers. It suggests that partnerships are not only with fungi, animals, or bacteria, but even within plant families themselves. The forest, then, becomes not just a network of survival, but a community of kinship. Partnerships extend beyond biology into climate itself. Rainforests, through transpiration, create their own rainfall. Plants and atmosphere form a feedback loop, sustaining each other. Even the wind plays a role, carrying pollen and seeds across continents. The partnerships of plants are not small or local. They are planetary. Every breath of air, every drop of rain, carries the signature of these hidden alliances. To see a plant is to see only half the story. The roots whisper beneath the soil, the flowers beckon to insects, the fruits call to birds. The plant is a weaver, threading itself into the lives of others, and the world it builds is one of partnership, not solitude. Perhaps this is why we feel peace among plants, because they remind us that life is not lived alone. Every bond, every relationship, every unseen tie is part of a greater whole. Just as trees lean into fungi, just as flowers lean into bees, we lean into one another, and in this leaning, in this exchange, we find strength. Imagine again the forest at night, not a collection of silent statues, but a network of glowing connections. Roots touching roots, fungi threading messages, leaves sending perfumes into the air. The forest hums with connection. The silence is only an illusion. Beneath it lies a chorus of life helping life. As you drift toward sleep, let this truth cradle you, that no being stands alone, that beneath every stillness lies connection, and that you, too, are part of this vast partnership of existence. And so we discover that plants are not solitary beings. They are partners, collaborators, builders of networks that sustain entire worlds. From fungi beneath the soil to bees in the air, from ants in thorns to winds across continents. Partnerships shape every moment of plant life, but connections do not end here. For plants carry within them not just survival strategies, but languages, ways of communicating through scent, color, and signal. In our next journey, we will listen closer to discover how plants speak and what messages they send in the quiet night. Have you ever wondered if plants can talk? We tend to imagine language as something uniquely human, spoken words, written scripts, carefully chosen sounds. But what if, hidden in plain sight, plants have their own languages? What if every scent, every color, every tiny chemical released into the air is a kind of message? And what if, in ways we are only beginning to understand, plants are whispering constantly, not in words we can hear, but in signals that shape survival, relationships, and even the fate of entire ecosystems? Could it be that the world around us is filled with conversations we have never learned to listen to? Imagine yourself in a meadow just before dawn. The air is still cool, the sky pale with the promise of light. Flowers are closed, their petals curled tightly, waiting for the warmth of the sun around you. The silence feels complete. But if you could hear the frequencies of plants, if you could smell the chemical signals drifting through the air, you would realize the meadow is already alive with messages. One flower is preparing to open, signaling with fragrance that pollinators will soon be rewarded. A tree nearby is releasing defensive chemicals into its leaves, preparing for insects that may arrive with the morning. The soil below hums with exchanges between roots and microbes. The meadow is not silent at all. It is alive with languages that do not need sound. Plants communicate in ways both subtle and astonishing. One of the most well-studied methods is chemical signaling. When a plant is attacked by insects, it releases compounds into the air known as volatile organic compounds. These scents are more than warnings. They can travel to neighboring plants, priming them to strengthen their defenses before the insects arrive. In some cases, the chemicals even attract predators of the insects, summoning help from the wider ecosystem. It is as though the plant is crying out, not in words, but in fragrances. But chemical communication is not only for defense. Flowers speak to pollinators through perfume, the sweet scent of a rose, the heavy fragrance of jasmine, the strange odor of a corpse flower. All are crafted messages. Each scent says, "Come to me. I have nectar. I have pollen. I have what you seek." Pollinators, guided by smell as much as sight, follow these invitations. In turn, they carry the plant's genetic message, pollen, to another bloom, completing the conversation. Color is another form of language. Petals glow with patterns invisible to human eyes, but striking in ultraviolet light. Bees and butterflies see these hidden messages as landing strips, guiding them to the nectar within. To us, a daisy may look simple, but to a bee, it is a map. The plant is not passive in its beauty. It is speaking, enticing, persuading. Plants also use touch. The sensitive plant, Mimosa folds its leaves when touched. Vines curl toward supports, responding to the faintest contact. Carnivorous plants close traps with the brush of an insect's wing. Though they move slowly, plants are constantly responding to touch, sending signals through electrical impulses. Yes, even plants have electrical communication, small pulses that pass through cells when triggered. These pulses guide growth, coordinate responses, and may even be part of memory-like processes. Beneath the soil, roots communicate to. They release chemicals that deter competitors or invite allies. Through fungal partnerships, they share sugars, nutrients, and even warning signals. Some researchers believe trees can even favor their own offspring, channeling more resources to kin through these underground networks. The forest floor becomes a library of exchanges, a constant murmur of underground dialogue. Did you know that plants may even make sounds? Recent studies suggest that stressed plants emit ultrasonic clicks, beyond the range of human hearing, though we are only beginning to understand this phenomenon. It raises a question: could insects or other plants be listening to these signals? If so, then the very air may be filled with plant voices. Hidden from our ears, communication is not always cooperative. Some plants deceive. Orchids, for example, mimic the scent of female insects, luring males to attempt mating with them. In doing so, the orchid attaches its pollen to the unsuspecting insect. It is a trick, a clever illusion, but it works. Other flowers mimic the colors of food plants, tricking pollinators into visiting without offering nectar in return. Even in the plant world, language can be manipulation, persuasion, and strategy, but whether honest or deceptive, cooperative or competitive, plant communication is everywhere. It shapes not only individual survival, but the balance of entire ecosystems. Without it, forests would fall silent, meadows would wither, and the intricate partnerships of life would unravel. The next time you walk through a garden, a forest, or a meadow, imagine it not as a place of silence, but as a place of voices, each leaf whispering, each flower singing, each root murmuring beneath the soil. We are surrounded by conversations too vast and too subtle for human ears. And yet, if we pause, if we imagine, we can almost hear them. The fragrance of a rose is not just beauty, but a message. The pattern of petals is not just color, but a map. The bending of a stem toward light is not just growth, but a reply to the sun. The falling of leaves is not just decay, but a signal to the soil. Every action, every motion, every fragrance is a phrase in the great language of plants. Perhaps this is why we feel calm among flowers, why we sense mystery in forests, why we find ourselves listening, even in silence, because on some level we are hearing, not with ears, but with breath, with instinct, with memory older than words. As you drift into sleep tonight, imagine yourself in a meadow where flowers are speaking in fragrance, where trees send whispers through their roots, where every breeze carries the unspoken words of green life. And let the thought bring you comfort that you are never alone in silence. The world is alive with languages you have yet to learn. And so, plants reveal themselves not as silent beings, but as speakers of hidden languages. They use scent, color, touch, chemistry, and even sound to share their truths. They whisper to each other, to animals, to the very air itself. But what happens when the language of plants meets the power of time? How do plants remember, adapt, and even carry stories across generations? In our next exploration, we will uncover the memory of plants and how their resilience holds secrets of survival written across centuries. Have you ever wondered if plants can remember? We often think of memory as something belonging only to animals, two brains, two creatures that move and think. But what if memory takes many forms? What if plants, though rooted in one place, have ways of recording experience, of learning from the past, of carrying hidden instructions forward through seasons and even generations. Could it be that every tree, every flower, every blade of grass is a kind of living library, holding stories not in words or images, but in patterns of growth and response? If so, what secret histories might the forest around you already know? Picture yourself in an ancient forest. The trees tower above you, their bark scarred with centuries of storms, their roots deep in soil that remembers ages long before your own. You pause beside a great oak, its trunk wide as a small house, its branches stretching like arms into the morning mist. At first, it feels like a monument of silence. But then you notice the subtle textures of the bark, the shifting shade of its leaves, the way its branches lean as though recalling where the light once fell decades ago. Beneath your feet, the soil holds fallen leaves from hundreds of autumns past, each one crumbled, each one returning to the earth, yet leaving behind a trace, a layer, a memory. Here, in the hush of the forest, you begin to sense something uncanny, that the trees are not just alive, they are remembering. Memory, in the human sense, involves brains and neurons, but in the plant world, memory is written in chemistry, structure, and response. It is a different kind of remembering, but no less profound. Take the sensitive plant, Mimosa pudica, the one that folds its leaves when touched. Scientists once tested whether it could learn when they dropped water on the plant repeatedly. At first it folded its leaves tightly, as if protecting itself, but after many trials, the plant stopped folding. It seemed to realize the water was not harmful. Even weeks later, when water was dropped again, the plant did not fold, as though it remembered. This is memory without a brain. Memory written into the very cells. Seeds also carry memory. Some seeds will not sprout until they have experienced cold. Others wait for fire or for the passage of time. This ensures they emerge only in conditions where survival is possible, a kind of ancestral remembering, passed down through generations. The seed is like a locked box, waiting for the exact key, frost, flame, or flood. Have memories carved into their rings. Each year, a tree adds a new ring of growth. Wide rings speak of seasons, with plenty of rain and light. Narrow rings reveal years of drought. A tree's body becomes a diary of climate, storms, and survival. Some trees live for thousands of years, carrying archives of history that no human library can match. But plant memory is not only physical, it can be chemical. When attacked by insects, some plants become better prepared for future attacks. Their cells adjust, producing stronger defenses the next time danger comes. In effect, the plant remembers being eaten. It is called priming, a kind of immune memory that echoes the way our own bodies learn from illness. There are even whispers that plants may pass memories between generations. Experiments suggest that stress in one generation, drought, for example, may leave subtle changes in the DNA of seeds, not altering the code itself, but marking it with chemical tags. This is known as epigenetics. It means the next generation may already be prepared for hardship because their parents remembered it. In this way, a forest carries memory not just in its rings and roots, but in its very genes. Did you know that vines also seem to remember supports? When a climbing plant finds a pole or tree to wrap around, it adjusts its growth. If the support is removed. The vine still curves, as though it expects the support to be there. This lingering expectation is another form of memory, a memory of place, of contact, of opportunity. And beneath the soil, in the great fungal networks connecting roots, there may be memory at the level of the entire ecosystem. Nutrients flow, signals travel, warnings are passed from one tree to another. Some scientists suggest these networks remember paths, keeping them open for repeated use, like trails in a forest. Worn smoother with every passage, if this is true, then the forest itself may have a kind of collective memory, stretching across species and centuries. What does this mean for us? It means that when we stand among trees, or touch the petals of a flower, we are not simply meeting something alive in the moment. We are brushing against something that carries echoes of past storms, droughts, fires, and seasons. We are in the presence of survival lessons written in leaf, bark, seed, and soil. There is something humbling in realizing that memory is not the privilege of brains alone. It is a property of life itself, the bending of a vine, the scar of a tree, the timing of a seed, all are ways of remembering. The forest around us is filled with stories, but they are not told in words. They are told in rings, in scents, in shadows, in cycles of bloom and decay. Perhaps this is why ancient trees inspire reverence, why standing beside a redwood or a baobab fills us with awe. We are standing not only before size, but before time, before living beings who have carried memories across centuries, who have seen droughts, fires, storms, migrations, and still remain. And perhaps this is why we find comfort in gardens, because the flowers there are not just beautiful, they are wise. They carry the memory of rain, of sunlight, of seasons beyond our own. When we breathe their fragrance, we are inhaling not only scent, but history, a memory written in molecules and petals, a story we cannot read, but can somehow feel. So when you next walk in the woods, imagine the trees as keepers of memory. Imagine the soil as a vault of ancient lessons. Imagine every seed as a story waiting to be told. And know that you are part of this, remembering too. For when you pause, when you listen, when you notice, you become part of the memory the forest holds. And so, plants reveal themselves not only as communicators, but as rememberers. They carry memories in seeds, in rings, in chemicals, in genes, and perhaps even in the networks that connect them. The world around us is not just alive, but aware of its past. But if plants can remember, what about their sense of the future? Do they only react, or can they also anticipate? In our next journey, we will explore the extraordinary ways plants seem to predict, sensing light, weather, and even time itself, unveiling secrets of foresight that may reshape how we understand life. Have you ever wondered if plants can see the future? Not in the mystical sense of crystal balls or fortune tellers, but in a biological sense, a foresight built into their very being. How does a seed know when to awaken? How does a flower know the right moment to bloom? How does a tree, standing silent through winter, somehow sense the precise arrival of spring? It almost seems as though plants are reading signals from a world just ahead of ours. What do they know that we do not? And what secret rhythms allow them to anticipate time itself? Picture yourself in a meadow as dusk settles. The air is cool, the light soft around you. Flowers close their petals as though tucking themselves into sleep. You watch as the sun dips lower, yet the plants are already adjusting, their leaves folding, their blossoms shutting tight, their colors dimming in harmony with the fading light. It is not random, it is not chance, it is a choreography, a silent rehearsal for the night to come. And tomorrow, as dawn stretches across the horizon, those same flowers will unfurl again, almost as if they knew in advance. The meadow feels alive with quiet wisdom, each stalk and blossom moving in rhythm with a timekeeper you cannot see. This is the foresight of plants, a sense of what is coming, a dialogue with the future written into life itself. Plants do not have eyes or clocks, yet they keep time with astonishing precision. At the heart of this ability lies the circadian rhythm, a built-in clock that allows plants to anticipate the daily cycle of light and darkness. Just as humans feel sleepy at night and awake in the morning, plants follow their own cycles. Leaves rise and fall, flowers open and close. Even in total darkness, the rhythm continues, as if the plant is keeping time inside its cells. This inner clock helps plants prepare for what is about to happen, rather than merely reacting. For example, many flowers begin producing nectar just before pollinators, like bees, are most active. They do not wait to sense the bees. They are ready ahead of time. This foresight ensures maximum success. In the same way, some leaves prepare their photosynthetic machinery just before dawn. By the time the first light strikes, they are already awake. It is as though the plant has set its alarm clock long before the morning arrives. But foresight goes beyond the daily cycle. Plants also seem to anticipate seasons. Trees in temperate regions shed their leaves in autumn, preparing for the cold. Long before the first snow, they sense changes in day length, the shortening light hours signaling that winter is coming. This way, they conserve energy and protect themselves from frost. It is not reaction, it is preparation. The forest braces itself in advance, a quiet act of foresight written into every branch, seeds to hold remarkable foresight. Some remain dormant for years, waiting for the precise conditions needed to sprout. One seed may wait until fire sweeps through, its hard shell cracked open by heat. Another may wait for flood, sensing moisture levels in the soil. Still others wait for cold, enduring frost before awakening in spring. This patience is a kind of timekeeping, a biological clock that looks not backward but forward, ensuring life emerges at the right moment. There are even plants that seem to sense weather. Some species can predict drought, closing their stomata, the tiny pores in their leaves, before water loss becomes critical. Others roll their leaves or adjust their growth in anticipation of storms. In deserts, cacti expand slowly when rain is coming, as though preparing reservoirs for water not yet fallen. The signals are subtle, but the foresight is real. It is survival written as prediction. Perhaps most astonishing is the way plants anticipate their partners. Certain flowers bloom only at night, perfectly timed for nocturnal pollinators like moths or bats. Others align with sunrise, meeting the schedules of bees and birds. The timing is so precise that if pollinators shift, plants adapt over generations. It is as if they are reading the habits of others, planning their own lives around them. Did you know that Charles Darwin himself was fascinated by this? He observed how climbing plants would circle steadily, as if searching for support. He realized they were not moving blindly, but following patterns that increased their chances of finding something to grasp. A kind of slow-motion strategy, a foresight in growth. Each movement, though imperceptible to us, was a calculation. Plants do not wander aimlessly. They prepare, they expect, they anticipate. And so we begin to see that foresight is not only the domain of creatures with eyes or minds. It belongs to life itself. Plants show us that the future is not an abstract mystery. It is written into cycles, into rhythms, into patterns older than memory. The forest, the meadow, the garden, all are engaged in a constant rehearsal for what comes next. It is silent, it is slow, but it is precise. There is a quiet beauty in realizing that plants live with one foot always in tomorrow. They do not wait for the sun, they prepare for it. They do not simply endure the cold, they brace for it. Their lives are choreographed not just by the present moment, but by the rhythms that stretch ahead. Perhaps this is why time feels different in a forest. When we walk among trees, we feel a slower pace, yet also a deeper order. It is not the hurried ticking of a clock, but the graceful turning of cycles. The flowers anticipate, the seeds wait, the branches prepare. The forest moves with time, not against it, and in that patience, there is wisdom. For humans, foresight often brings anxiety. We worry about what is coming. We fear the unknown. But in plants, foresight is not fear, it is alignment. It is trust in cycles, in patterns, in the continuity of life. The tree does not panic at the thought of winter. It simply lets its leaves fall. The seed does not dread the years it spends in darkness. It simply waits. This is a kind of wisdom we might learn from. To prepare, but not to fear. To anticipate, but also to trust. To understand that tomorrow is already written in the quiet signals of today. And maybe this is the deeper secret of the foresight of plants. That in their patience, in their preparation, they reveal not only how to survive, but how to live in harmony with time itself. And so, plants reveal themselves as prophets of nature, keeping time, anticipating change, preparing for what has not yet arrived. They teach us that the future is not unknown chaos, but a rhythm we can learn to trust. But foresight is only part of their hidden life. For plants are not only timekeepers, they are builders. They craft air, food, shelter, and beauty. They shape the very world around us, often invisibly. In our next journey, we will explore the incredible power of plants as creators and discover how every breath you take is a gift from their silent work. Have you ever wondered who truly built the world you walk upon? When we think of builders, we picture humans, machines, cities rising from stone and steel. But long before us, before animals, even before the first dinosaurs walked the earth, the true architects of our planet were already at work. Silent, patient, rooted in place, plants were shaping the land, the air, and the very breath we take. What if every forest, every meadow, every garden is not just alive, but also a construction site? A place where plants are endlessly building the foundation of life. Brick by invisible brick, leaf by quiet leaf. Imagine yourself standing at the edge of a dense forest at twilight. The trees rise before you like towers, their trunks columns of living wood, their canopies stretching wide like vaulted ceilings. The air is cooler here, softer, filled with the scent of moss and leaves. You breathe deeply, and it feels different from the air outside the forest. Fresher, richer, as if newly made, and in a sense, it is. For the trees around you are not only standing in silence, they are actively building the atmosphere you depend on. Each leaf, each blade of grass, each patch of moss is a tiny workshop, turning sunlight into sugar, and air into life. The forest is a city, though not of stone. It is a cathedral of time and patience. A place built not in years, but in centuries, and as you stand in the fading light, you begin to realize that the world you know is not simply given. It has been built, shaped by the work of plants. The greatest construction project in the history of Earth began billions of years ago, before plants as we know them existed. Simple organisms called cyanobacteria started producing oxygen through photosynthesis. This act, pulling in carbon dioxide, releasing oxygen, transformed the planet forever. Oceans bubbled with new chemistry, skies filled with breathable air. Life as we know it, complex and animal, would not exist without that first quiet work, in a sense. Plants and their ancestors built the atmosphere itself, brick by invisible brick of oxygen. Photosynthesis remains the most important construction process on Earth. Every green leaf is a tiny factory, taking sunlight, carbon dioxide, and water, and turning them into sugars. Those sugars fuel not only the plant, but the entire food web. Every bite of fruit, every grain of rice, every ear of corn is a product of this alchemy. Even meat, animals, large and small, depends on plants, first converting sunlight into edible form. Without plants, the chain of energy would break. They are the builders of food, the foundation beneath every meal. But plants do not stop there. Forests shape the soil beneath them. Their roots break rock into fragments, creating new earth. When leaves fall, they decompose, enriching the soil with nutrients. Layer upon layer, century upon century, plants make the ground fertile. Deserts may turn to grassland, grassland to forest. Life spreading outward, always building. They also build water systems. Forests act like great sponges, drawing water from soil and releasing it back into the air through a process called transpiration. This moisture rises, forms clouds, and returns as rain in the Amazon rainforest. Scientists say as much as half the rainfall is recycled by the forest itself. Without trees, rivers dry, climates shift, rain disappears. With trees, water flows, storms form, life thrives. And then there is wood, one of the most astonishing building materials nature has ever produced. Wood is both light and strong, flexible and enduring. It is the skeleton of forests, the architecture of landscapes. For millions of years, wood has housed creatures, sheltered life, built nests, hives, burrows, and for humans. It has built civilizations. Every house, every ship, every fire in human history is a reminder of the builders that are trees. But perhaps the most breathtaking example of plants as builders lies beneath the sea. Coral reefs, though built by tiny animals, rely on algae living within them to provide energy. Seagrasses and mangroves stabilize coasts, holding sand and soil in place. Whole ecosystems, entire marine cities, are constructed with the help of plants. They are architects, not just of land, but of ocean. Did you know that plants have also built time itself? The oxygen they released over millions of years created the ozone layer, protecting Earth from harmful radiation. This allowed life to thrive on land, shaping the future of evolution. Without plants, time would have taken another path entirely. The very history of life has been engineered by their patient building. Even now, in cities and towns, plants are quietly building. Roots crack sidewalks, vines climb walls, moss softens stone. They are always reclaiming, always constructing new layers of life. Our skyscrapers may reach high, but a forest has been building higher for far longer. And when our structures fall to ruin, plants will be the ones to take them back, the ultimate builders, continuing their work long after we are gone. If you pause and see plants not as background, but as builders, the world changes. A meadow becomes a workshop of green architects. A forest becomes a cathedral, raised not by hands, but by time. A seed becomes a blueprint, carrying instructions for growth, shelter, and renewal. We think of human builders as powerful, but their work is brief. A bridge may stand 1,000 years, a tower a few centuries. But a redwood builds for 2,000 years. A coral reef builds for millennia. A forest builds a climate that spans continents. The scale of plant architecture humbles our own. Perhaps this is why we feel awe in nature, because we sense that we are walking through something built not for us, but for life itself. The air we breathe, the food we eat, the soil we walk upon, all are structures built patiently, silently, generously. No one asked the tree to build oxygen. No one commanded the grass to build soil. And yet they do, endlessly, without pause. Their building is an act of existence itself. And maybe this is the secret lesson hidden in the work of plants, that true building does not shout. It does not demand recognition. It simply creates, sustains, and renews. To walk among trees is to walk among the greatest builders in history. To stand in a field of wheat is to stand in the architecture of survival. And to breathe in is to accept a gift that was built long before you by a forest. And so, we discover that plants are not passive decorations, but the very builders of our world. They shape air, soil, water, and life. They construct habitats and histories, patiently raising the architecture of existence. But builders are never only practical, they are also artists. For what plants build is not only useful, but beautiful. In our next journey, we will step into the artistry of plants and explore how flowers, leaves, and forests create patterns so breathtaking they rival the stars. The builders of the world are also its designers, and their canvas is life itself. Have you ever wondered why flowers are beautiful? Why a forest floor glows with shades of green that calm the mind? Why the delicate swirl of a sunflower or the perfect symmetry of a daisy seems to echo patterns we find in galaxies, seashells, and even our own bodies? Could it be that plants are not only survivors, not only builders, but also artists, designing colors, scents, and shapes that speak to creatures across the earth? Perhaps beauty itself is not an accident, but a language of survival. And perhaps the artistry of plants has been shaping the story of life all along. Imagine walking into a meadow just as night is falling. The last rays of the sun catch petals glowing like stained glass. Purples deepen into velvet shadows. Golds soften into amber fire. And whites shine faintly as though lit from within. You bend closer, and the fragrance rises, sweet, mysterious, almost intoxicating. Moths drift like floating lanterns, guided by the invisible trails of scent, and you realize that every blossom here is not random, but designed. The shapes, the colors, the patterns, even the timing of bloom, all are carefully tuned. It feels as if you have stepped into a gallery where the artists are plants and the canvas is life itself. A quiet gallery that has been open not for years, but for millions of seasons. And as you stand among the flowers, you begin to sense the artistry at work. Subtle, patient, yet astonishingly precise. The artistry of plants begins with color. Flowers produce pigments, chlorophyll for greens, carotenoids for yellows and oranges, anthocyanins for reds, blues, and purples. But these are not just random shades. Each color is a signal, tuned for specific eyes. Bees see ultraviolet patterns invisible to us. Butterflies are drawn to bright reds and oranges. Nocturnal moths prefer pale blossoms that glow in moonlight. The palette of flowers is not chosen at random, but painted with purpose. Then comes shape. Flowers take on forms that match their pollinators. Trumpet-shaped blossoms welcome hummingbirds, their long beaks sliding deep inside. Flat, open flowers invite butterflies. Small, clustered blossoms suit flies or beetles. Each curve and angle is a design, sculpted by time to guide visitors exactly where they need to go. The artistry is functional beauty with a reason, and yet to us it feels like pure wonder. Patterns also play a role. Some flowers display radial symmetry, like the spokes of a wheel. Others follow spirals, echoing the Fibonacci sequence. Sunflowers arrange their seeds in spirals that pack space with perfect efficiency. To the human eye, it is mesmerizing. To the plant, it is survival, the most efficient way to fit seeds. Here, mathematics becomes art, the hidden order of the universe, drawn onto petals and leaves. Scents are another dimension of artistry. Lavender, rose, jasmine, vanilla, each fragrance is a chemical message. To us, it evokes emotion, memory, comfort. To pollinators, it is a beacon guiding them to nectar. Some flowers even release different scents at different times of day. Sweet by day to attract bees, musky by night to lure moths. This is choreography, not chance, a masterpiece of timing and chemistry. Even leaves and forests carry artistry. The varied greens of leaves are not identical. Some shimmer, some darken, some glow translucent. Together, they create a mosaic of shades that soothe the eye. This may not be beauty for beauty's sake, but to us, the harmony of greens feels like peace. Studies even show that looking at green spaces lowers blood pressure, reduces anxiety, and calms the mind. It is as though plants have painted landscapes that heal. Did you know that some plants even trick the senses with their artistry? The orchid family is famous for deception. Some orchids mimic the exact shape and scent of female insects. Male insects, fooled, attempt to mate with the flower and carry away its pollen. This is art as illusion, beauty as strategy. Not all beauty is honest, but it is still powerful. But artistry does not stop at the scale of flowers. Forests as a whole create designs. The branching of trees follows fractal patterns, repeated shapes at different scales. The veins of a leaf, the roots underground, the branches overhead all mirror one another. From the smallest leaf to the tallest tree, nature repeats its geometry. And when we see it, we feel awe, because it matches the patterns of rivers, lightning, even galaxies. The artistry of plants is the artistry of the cosmos, drawn in green and gold. Even timing is part of the design. Some flowers bloom all at once, overwhelming pollinators with abundance. Others stagger their blooms, ensuring survival across weeks. Whole landscapes shift in waves of color, first snowdrops, then tulips, then roses. It feels like a symphony, each species taking its turn. The artistry is temporal as much as visual. And perhaps the most astonishing artistry of all is how plants design not only themselves but their ecosystems. A meadow is not just random growth, it is a tapestry of species, each blooming at different times, each offering nectar in different ways. Together they support bees, butterflies, birds, and beyond. The design stretches across species, across communities, a collaboration that paints the earth with abundance. If you look closely, every flower is a brushstroke, every leaf a line of poetry, every tree a sculpture rising slowly toward the sky. The artistry of plants is not decoration, it is communication. Beauty is their language, survival their message. And yet, as we walk through a garden, we cannot help but feel it is also for us the rose that opens in morning light, the jasmine that perfumes the night air, the sunflower that tilts toward the sun. Each feels like a gift. It may be that the beauty we see is a side effect, that we are not the intended audience. But still, we are moved by colors that calm, patterns that mesmerize, scents that comfort. Plants create without asking for applause. Their galleries are open to all, free to enter, free to enjoy. And perhaps this is the deeper truth, that artistry is not something reserved for humans. It is woven into life itself. Every spiral, every petal, every shade of green is a reminder that beauty and survival are not separate. They are one. To live is to design, to survive is to create. And plants remind us that even in silence, even in stillness, one can leave behind masterpieces. So next time you pass a flower by the roadside, pause. For you are not just looking at a blossom. You are looking at art shaped over millions of years. A work that belongs to both the earth and the cosmos. A reminder that beauty is everywhere, if only we see. And so, we discover that plants are artists as well as builders. They paint with colors, sculpt with shapes, compose with scents, and choreographed with time. Their artistry is both functional and breathtaking, a living gallery that has been open since the dawn of life. But artistry does more than attract, it connects. It ties plants to animals, pollinators to blossoms, ecosystems to cycles. In our next journey, we will explore the great web of interdependence and see how plants, in their artistry, weave themselves into the lives of all living things. Have you ever wondered how a forest survives? How thousands of species, trees, flowers, insects, birds, fungi, and mammals manage to share the same space? Why doesn't it collapse into chaos? What invisible rules allow such harmony? The secret is that plants are not solitary beings. They are weavers of webs, creating connections that bind life together. What looks like competition is often cooperation. What looks like silence is full of conversation. Could it be that plants are not only surviving within ecosystems, but actively designing them, shaping the very web of life that holds us all? Imagine stepping into an old-growth forest at dusk. The air is cool and damp, scented with earth and leaves. The canopy above is a living roof, branches locking together like fingers. Beneath, ferns spread in lush carpets, mushrooms glow faintly in the twilight, and vines twist upward, searching for light. Birds settle for the night, insects hum in chorus, and somewhere a fox pads silently across the moss. At first, it seems as though each plant is standing alone. A tree here, a fern there, a flower blooming quietly in the shadows. But if you could see the hidden lines of energy, the chemical signals drifting through the air, the threads of fungi spreading beneath the soil, you would realize that this is not a crowd of individuals. It is a network, every leaf, every root, every spore connected, a tapestry so intricate that to disturb one thread is to shake the whole design. And as you stand there, you begin to sense the mystery that this quiet forest is alive, not just as separate organisms, but as one vast breathing whole. The web of life begins underground. Roots are not just anchors and straws, they are explorers and messengers. Through them, plants exchange water, nutrients, and even warnings. And connecting them all are fungi, vast networks known as mycorrhizal fungi. These fungi weave microscopic threads that link root to root, tree to tree. Scientists call this the wood wide web. Through it, a giant oak can send sugars to a shaded sapling. A dying tree can share its stored nutrients with the next generation. And plants under attack by pests can release signals that prepare neighbors for defense. What looks like stillness is a whispering network of generosity, caution, and cooperation above ground. The web spreads into the air. Plants release volatile organic compounds, invisible chemical perfumes that travel on the wind. Some are invitations, drawing in pollinators or seed dispersers. Others are warnings, alerting nearby plants to danger. When a caterpillar chews on one leaf, the entire plant begins producing defensive chemicals. Nearby plants, sensing the airborne alarm, strengthen their defenses too. It is as if the forest breathes in unison. Each plant aware of the struggles of its neighbors. The web extends to animals as well. Birds nest in trees, spreading seeds in return. Bees gather nectar and carry pollen. Bats sip from night-blooming flowers and scatter seeds across the darkness. Elephants knock down branches, creating sunlight gaps for new growth. Even humans, though often forgetting it, are part of this web, breathing the oxygen plants give, eating the food they grow, sheltering beneath their timber. Every relationship is a thread, each tugging gently on the others. But the web is not only cooperative, it is also cunning. Some plants exploit the network. Parasitic plants, like dodder, tap directly into the vascular systems of others, stealing nutrients. Some trees release toxins through their roots to suppress rivals, a strategy known as allelopathy. Even within the web, competition weaves alongside cooperation. And yet, balance emerges. The forest is both generous and ruthless. Yet, it survives because the web is flexible, adaptive, and always adjusting. One of the most astonishing discoveries is that mother trees, the largest, oldest giants in a forest, often play a central role through fungal networks. They recognize their own seedlings and preferentially share nutrients with them. They act as guardians, feeding young trees shaded beneath their branches, even as they die. Their stored carbon and nitrogen flow outward into the roots of the community. The forest is not simply a collection of trees. It is a family connected by invisible veins, and when one falls, its strength does not vanish. It is given back to the whole. Did you know that even prairies and grasslands weave webs as intricate as forests? The grasses may look similar, but their roots stretch deep and wide, tangling into shared reservoirs of water when drought strikes. These roots help balance the community, some sharing moisture, others waiting patiently for rain. The surface may seem dry and fragile, but below, the network holds steady. It is the quiet resilience of plants that allows ecosystems to endure. Perhaps the most haunting truth is this: every breath we take is part of the web. Plants release oxygen as a gift of photosynthesis. We breathe it in, our cells burn it with sugars, and we exhale carbon dioxide, which plants in turn use to grow. It is an endless loop, invisible, constant, binding us in. You may feel separate, lying in your room at night, but with every breath, you are participating in the same web of life that ties forests, oceans, and grasslands together. The forest is a loom, the meadow is a tapestry, the desert, the jungle, the grassland, all are woven fabrics of life. Threads of root and leaf, of wing and paw, of water and light. And though we walk among them, we are not outside. We are part of the pattern. Every inhale, every exhale, every step, every meal, a thread pulled, a thread given. The web of life is not fragile in the way glass is fragile. It bends, it flexes, it rewrites itself, and yet it is delicate in its balance. Too many threads pulled, too many cut, and the pattern unravels. Still, within that pattern lies resilience. 1,000 voices sharing resources, 1,000 shapes finding ways to coexist. The silence of a forest, the stillness of a meadow is not lifeless. It is conversation at the scale of roots and wings. And if you listen with your imagination, you may feel it. The pull of the web through your chest as you breathe, the grounding of roots as your body rests, the expansion of leaves as your thoughts drift outward. We are not only witnesses to the web, we are threads in it, carried, supported, sustained, never truly alone. And so, we leave the forest with a new understanding that plants are not isolated, but entangled, that every root and leaf is part of a living network, a web that stretches across soil, air, and even into our lungs. But the story does not end here, for if plants can weave life into networks, they can also weave time. They remember, they adapt. They change across generations. In our next exploration, we will step into the hidden memory of plants and discover how they carry lessons across seasons and centuries. A memory written not in words, but in life itself. Have you ever wondered if plants remember? if they hold the echoes of storms, the shadows of droughts, the taste of sunlight from summers long gone. We think of memory as belonging to creatures with brains, to animals that dream, to humans who tell stories. But what if memory is broader than that? What if a tree remembers the fires of a century past? What if a flower recalls the rhythms of night and day? What if a forest holds its history not in books, but in bark, roots, and seeds? Could it be that plants are storytellers too, speaking in a language of memory older than words? Picture yourself in a grove of ancient olive trees, their trunks twisted and gnarled, bark furrowed deep with time. Some of these trees are over 1,000 years old. They have stood through wars, watched empires rise and fall. They have endured droughts, floods, and the footsteps of countless generations. And yet, each spring, they still bear fruit. You touch the rough bark and wonder, what does this tree know? It cannot speak. Yet in its tissues, it carries records of every hardship and triumph. The thickness of its rings reveal wet years and dry. Its leaves recall the chemistry of past seasons. Its seeds contain instructions shaped by centuries of survival. The grove around you is not silent history, it is living memory. And as the evening air cools and the stars begin to scatter across the sky, you realize that you are standing inside an archive, a library where every leaf, every scar, every twist in the wood is a page waiting to be read. Memory in plants begins at the cellular level. They have no brains, no neurons, no synapses, yet they respond to experience, and more importantly, they change because of it. This is the essence of memory. Take drought, for example. When a plant endures a dry season, it develops chemical and genetic changes that help it survive the next one. Stomata, tiny pores on leaves, may close more quickly. Conserving water, roots may grow deeper or broader, seeking hidden reservoirs. And, astonishingly, when the next generation grows, some of these adaptations remain, passed down not as DNA changes, but as epigenetic memory, invisible bookmarks on their genetic script that whisper, beware the drought, prepare for scarcity, fire tells another story. Some plants have seeds that only germinate after fire. Locked away in tough casings, they wait. The heat of flame cracks them open. And in the ashes of the old forest, a new generation rises. The plants do not merely survive the fire, they remember it. They shape their entire life cycles around the rhythm of destruction and renewal. Even a single leaf can show memory. Consider the sensitive plant, Mimosa pudica. When touched, its leaves fold inward, a defense against predators. But if the touch is repeated and proves harmless, the plant gradually stops responding. It remembers that the stimulus is not a threat. This phenomenon is called habituation, something once thought to exist only in animals with nervous systems. And yet, here it is, alive in a simple plant. Plants also remember the passing of seasons through a process called vernal. Some plants require a period of winter cold before they can flower. This ensures that they bloom only in spring. When conditions are safe, the plant remembers the chill, holding it like a note in its tissues until the moment arrives to release its blossoms. Without this memory, their timing would falter, and survival would collapse. But memory in plants extends even further into vast time scales. Tree rings preserve the climate of centuries, a wide ring for a year of abundance, a narrow ring for a year of hardship. Through these rings, trees archive the whispers of rainfall, the scorch of drought, even the ash of volcanic eruptions. Forests become living timekeepers, marking history long before human records began. And then there is the memory of networks through fungal threads. Plants can remember where resources flowed. Trees share carbon and nitrogen not randomly, but with strategy. Past exchanges shape future generosity. This means that cooperation itself carries memory, a hidden ledger, balanced not in words, but in nutrients. Even cuttings and grafts show memory. A branch taken from a mature tree will flower sooner than a seedling, because it remembers its age. The tissue itself knows the story of its years. Even separated from its original trunk, the memory continues. Did you know that seeds can hold memory across generations? Some seeds have lain dormant for decades, even centuries. Yet, when conditions return, water, warmth, sunlight, they sprout as if time had paused in their tiny structures. They carry not only DNA, but the resilience of ancestors. A record of survival against odds. The seed is a capsule of memory, a promise written in the smallest script of life. This challenges our human-centered idea of memory. We think memory requires awareness, but perhaps memory is simply the persistence of experience. And in that sense, every plant, every forest, every field is full of memories, silent but enduring. A meadow remembers the footsteps of herds that grazed long ago. A forest remembers the fire that once roared through its heart. A tree remembers the storms that bent its branches, the winters that froze its sap. And the seed remembers the journey of its ancestors, carried by wind, bird, or wave. Memory is not only in minds, it is in rings and roots, in scars and seeds. It is the whisper of survival passed from one season to the next, the gentle promise that life has endured before and will endure again. Perhaps that is why standing among trees feels comforting, why touching the bark of an old oak brings a strange calm, because in its silence it holds stories older than our fears. Older than our worries. It tells us, I have seen storms fiercer than yours. I have endured winters colder than this, and still I stand still. I reach for the sky in the quiet memory of plants. There is a lesson that endurance is not loud, that wisdom is not always spoken, that memory is not just about holding the past, but about carrying strength into the future. So when you lie beneath a tree, remember this: you are resting in the shade of memory. And when you breathe, you are inhaling not only air, but the stories of a world that remembers far more than we know. And so we discover that plants remember. They carry the lessons of drought, the rhythm of fire, the memory of seasons, the echoes of centuries. They hold survival in their tissues and pass it forward to generations yet to come. Their memories are not fragile, but rooted, not fleeting, but enduring. And if plants can remember, they can also shape the future. In our next journey, we will explore how plants are not only archives of memory, but engineers of tomorrow, shaping landscapes, weather, and even the fate of entire ecosystems, a story of power written in green. Have you ever stopped to wonder who builds the future of our planet? Is it human hands with machines, cities, and technology, or is it something quieter, older, and far more patient? What if the true architects of tomorrow are plants? What if the forests, the meadows, and the oceans of green are quietly shaping the climate of centuries to come? Breathing air into our lungs, sculpting soil beneath our feet, even steering the winds and rains above. Could it be that while we look forward with worry and ambition, plants are already writing the blueprint of the future? Imagine standing on the edge of a vast rainforest at dawn. Mist curls above the canopy, glowing gold as the sun rises. Birds stir, insects hum, and the forest exhales a breath so deep and wide that it reaches across the globe. Moisture rises from the trees, carried upward where it gathers into clouds. Those clouds drift across continents, releasing rain thousands of miles away. Every drop of water in your hand may once have passed through the veins of a leaf. Every breath of air you take may have been shaped by forests you have never seen. Here, the trees are not just trees. They are weather makers, climate shapers. This is no passive landscape. It is a factory of futures. And as you listen to the soft rustle of leaves in the morning wind, you sense the truth that plants are building not just the present moment, but the centuries yet to come. Plants are architects of the atmosphere through photosynthesis. They take in carbon dioxide and release oxygen. This process, happening in billions of leaves, created the very air we breathe today. Over 2 billion years ago, ancient algae filled the skies with oxygen. Without them, animals, humans, and even thought itself would never have been possible. Plants wrote the script for life by building the air, but their architecture goes further. Forests regulate climate by storing carbon. A single tree can lock away hundreds of kilograms of carbon in its wood. A forest, billions. Tropical rainforests, like the Amazon, act as Earth's lungs, drawing in carbon dioxide and releasing oxygen. But they also act as thermostats, cooling the planet by shading soil, cycling moisture, and releasing water vapor. Without them, temperatures rise, rainfall falters, and weather patterns shift. The design of tomorrow's climate is written in green. Plants also design the soil. When roots push into rock, they break it into minerals. When leaves fall, they enrich the ground with nutrients, layer by layer. They build the fertile earth on which civilizations depend. Without plants, there would be no agriculture, no wheat, no rice, no corn, no bread on the table, no grain in the field. Every loaf of bread is not only food, it is architecture, shaped by plants turning sunlight into sustenance. And the reach of plants extends into the sky. Forests create rain through transpiration. Trees release vast amounts of water vapor. This vapor rises, cools, and condenses into clouds. Those clouds move and drop rain, sometimes thousands of kilometers away. The Amazon alone produces so much moisture that it drives rainfall across South America. Without it, whole regions would wither into desert. Plants are engineers of weather itself. Did you know that even grasslands shape the future? Though less towering than forests, their deep roots lock carbon underground. Prairies and savannas build soils that endure for millennia. In times of drought, these roots hold moisture. In times of fire, they regrow quickly. Their quiet resilience stabilizes entire climates. They are architects of endurance. And in the oceans, plants build futures too. Tiny phytoplankton drift with the currents, invisible to the naked eye. Yet they produce over half the oxygen we breathe. They draw carbon from the air, sink it into the sea, and balance global climate. These microscopic architects shape the destiny of the entire planet. Without them, Earth would be unrecognizable. But plants are not only architects of air and soil, they are architects of time itself. Through seeds, they send futures forward. Some seeds remain dormant for decades, waiting for the right moment. Others are carried across oceans, starting new forests on distant shores. In each seed is a design for tomorrow, a genetic blueprint shaped by millions of years of adaptation, a capsule of survival waiting to unfold. Even the great cycles of history are guided by plants. The rise of civilizations followed the domestication of crops. Wheat in the Middle East, rice in Asia, maize in the Americas. Where plants gave abundance, empires flourished. Where crops failed, empires fell. The architecture of human destiny is written in the quiet patience of plants. And now, in our own time, the role of plants as architects is clearer than ever. Forests absorb carbon, buffering us against climate change. Mangroves shield coastlines from storms. Wetlands filter water, feeding rivers and lakes. The choices plants make, and the choices we make about them, will shape the next century more than any city or machine. The future is not built in boardrooms alone. It is rooted in forests, meadows, and oceans. The architects of tomorrow do not wear hard hats or carry blueprints. They stretch green fingers toward the sky. They breathe in silence. They grow with patience. And in doing so, they shape worlds. A single seed becomes a tree. A single tree becomes a forest becomes rain, rain becomes river, river becomes ocean, and ocean becomes climate. From the smallest green sprout, a chain of futures unfolds. The map of tomorrow begins in the humblest leaf. And perhaps that is the most astonishing truth, that the future is not always loud or sudden. It is patient, it is grown when we walk among trees. We are walking in time machines. They carry the breath of ages past and the design of ages yet to come. Their rings hold history, their seeds hold destiny, and in their shade we glimpse both memory and promise. So, as you close your eyes tonight, remember that the air filling your lungs is the gift of leaves. The food that nourishes your body is the gift of roots. The stability beneath your feet is the gift of forests and fields. The future has always been written not in stone, but in green. And the architects of that future are already at work, quiet, steady, unstoppable. And so, we discover that plants are not just survivors of the past, not just holders of memory, but builders of what is yet to come. They shape the air, the soil, the rain, and even the rhythm of civilizations. But there is more to this story, for the architecture of plants is not only practical, it is also medicinal. Plants have been shaping not only the future of ecosystems, but the future of our health. In our next journey, we will explore the healing power of plants and the timeless pharmacy hidden in their leaves, roots, and flowers. Have you ever paused to wonder why the very medicines that heal us often trace their origins back to plants? Why a forest can feel like a hospital without walls? Why the fragrance of lavender the taste of mint. Or the bitter bark of a tree can quiet pain, lower fever, or calm the mind. Could it be that plants are not only food and shelter, but pharmacists and guardians, designing complex chemical defenses not only for themselves, but offering them freely to us? What secrets of healing lie hidden in roots, leaves, and flowers, waiting to be remembered? Picture yourself stepping into an ancient forest at dusk. The air is damp and fragrant, filled with earthy scents. Sunlight fades through a lattice of leaves, painting everything in shades of emerald and gold. You walk slowly, noticing how certain plants stand out. A cluster of aromatic herbs, a tall tree whose bark seems almost to glow in the fading light for thousands of years. People have entered such forests not just for wood or food, but for medicine. Every leaf and root carries a hidden library of chemistry, a coded language of healing written long before humans arrived. Here, among the quiet breath of the forest, you realize you are surrounded by one of the oldest pharmacies in existence, a place where plants whisper remedies to those who learn how to listen. Plants are master chemists. Without the ability to run, fight, or flee, they defend themselves through chemistry. They create compounds to repel insects, deter animals, and protect against disease. But many of these compounds also interact with human biology, offering relief, healing, and even cures. Consider the willow tree. Its bark contains salicin. When chewed or brewed as tea, it reduces pain and fever centuries later. Chemists refined this into aspirin, one of the most widely used medicines in the world. A simple tree gave humanity relief from suffering. Or think of the rosy periwinkle, a small, delicate flower native to Madagascar. Inside its petals are alkaloids that became the basis for powerful drugs treating childhood leukemia and Hodgkin's disease. This humble flower has saved millions of lives, its secret chemicals unlocked by careful study. The Amazon rainforest holds thousands of such secrets. Among them, the bark of the cinchona tree. For centuries, indigenous peoples brewed it to treat fevers. Later, scientists isolated quinine, a compound that became the first effective treatment for malaria. Entire histories of exploration, trade, and empire unfolded from this single plant, proving again how plants shape not only bodies, but the fate of nations. Did you know that more than half of modern medicines are either directly derived from plants or inspired by plant compounds? Digitalis from foxglove strengthens the heart. Morphine from the poppy eases unbearable pain. Caffeine from coffee and tea sharpens the mind, has been studied for its potential protective effects against neurological disease. And countless herbs, from peppermint to ginger, chamomile to turmeric, provide comfort and healing in kitchens across the world. But the healing power of plants goes beyond chemistry alone. Forests release aerosols called phytoncides. When we walk among trees, we breathe them in. They lower stress hormones, reduce blood pressure, and boost immune function. This practice, known in Japan as Shinrin-yoku or forest bathing, has measurable effects on human health. The medicine of plants is not just in bottles. It is in the air of the living forest. Plants also guide us into balance with time. Lavender's fragrance calms the nervous system. helping sleep come more easily. Valerian root quiets the restless mind. Chamomile tea eases tension in each case. A plant speaks directly to the rhythm of the body, aligning us with cycles of rest, recovery, and renewal. And yet, there is still mystery for every known medicine. There are countless plants whose secrets remain undiscovered. Rainforests, grasslands, deserts, and ocean algae hold compounds waiting to be understood. Some may heal diseases we cannot yet cure. Others may teach us how to grow stronger, live longer, or adapt to changing climates. The pharmacy of the future is already alive in green silence. But plants do not give healing freely. They ask for respect. Indigenous knowledge has always honored this. Healing is not just chemistry, but relationship between human and plant, healer and earth. Every time we sip a tea, chew a leaf, or swallow a pill, we are entering into an ancient exchange, one that binds our well-being to the green breath of the world. When you think of a plant, do you see a quiet stalk of green, or do you see an apothecary, a healer, a guardian? Each leaf a vial of medicine, each flower a prescription, each root a story of survival. Plants were here before us, shaping the chemistry of earth. They were here as our ancestors learned to soothe pain with bark, to cool fevers with herbs, to mend wounds with leaves. They have been the silent companions of our suffering and our healing, our teachers in times of sickness, our allies in times of weakness. And perhaps they are more than healers of the body. Perhaps they are healers of the mind and soul. For who has not felt calmed by the fragrance of roses? Who has not felt uplifted by a field of sunflowers, or restored by a walk beneath tall trees? Healing is not always measured in dosages. Sometimes it is measured in breaths, in moments of calm, in the return of sleep. So when you close your eyes tonight, know that the green world surrounds you, offering medicines seen and unseen, offering calm through fragrance, relief through chemistry, and wisdom through its quiet, steady presence. The world itself is a living pharmacy, and we are forever in its care. So we find that plants are not only architects of the future, not only builders of air, soil, and rain, but healers too, guardians of health, companions in suffering, and guides to balance. Yet healing is only one layer of their mystery. For plants are not just alive, they are also astonishingly intelligent in their own way, communicating, sensing, even solving problems without a brain. In our next journey, we will step into the hidden intelligence of plants and ask the breathtaking question, do plants think, dream, or even remember? Have you ever wondered, can plants think? Can they sense, decide, or even remember? At first, the idea may seem impossible. How could something without a brain or nerves have intelligence? And yet, scientists are discovering that plants are far from passive. They sense light, gravity, touch, sound. Even the chemicals in the air, they communicate with neighbors, warn of danger, and adapt to challenges. Some even seem to solve problems, learning from past experiences. Could it be that the intelligence of plants is not like ours, but something quieter, stranger, and older? Picture yourself lying in a meadow on a summer evening. The sun dips low, painting the sky in pink and gold around you. Tall grasses sway gently in the breeze. Wildflowers open and close as the last light fades. Bees hum, carrying stories of nectar between blooms. At first, it seems peaceful, still, almost silent. But beneath this calm, unseen dramas unfold. Plants are sensing your presence, feeling the weight of your shadow across their leaves. They are listening to the vibrations of insect wings. They are speaking underground through roots and fungal threads, passing signals, warnings, even nutrients. This meadow is not silent. It is alive with quiet intelligence, the kind that does not need words or thoughts, but shapes the survival of every living thing. For centuries, people assumed plants were passive, beautiful, useful, but ultimately unconscious. Yet modern science is overturning this assumption, revealing that plants have senses, communication systems, and even problem-solving skills. Take light, for instance. Plants do not just grow toward the sun. They measure the length of day, the angle of light, the intensity of brightness. They know when seasons are shifting. They time their flowering and fruiting with precision. Some even track the movement of the sun hour by hour, adjusting their leaves like solar panels. This is not simple reaction. It is information gathering and decision making. Then there is touch. The tendrils of a vine will search in the air until they brush against a surface. When they do, they coil tightly, climbing higher. The Venus flytrap feels the movement of an insect across tiny hairs. It counts the touches, 1, 2, 3, and only then snaps shut, ensuring the prey is real and not just a stray drop of rain. This counting, this decision, is a form of intelligence. Plants also sense vibrations. Experiments show that roots grow differently when exposed to the sound of running water. Even if no moisture is present, seeds sprout faster when exposed to certain tones, and some flowers increase nectar production when they detect the buzz of a pollinating bee nearby. Though they have no ears, they listen. But perhaps most astonishing is the way plants communicate. When a caterpillar begins chewing on a leaf, the plant releases chemicals into the air. Nearby plants detect the signal and begin producing bitter compounds. Defenses are raised across an entire community underground. Roots link into networks of fungi called the mycorrhizal web. Through this hidden internet, plants share sugars, nutrients, even warnings. A tree shaded from sunlight may receive carbon from its neighbors. A sapling in danger may be fed by a mother tree. This is cooperation, memory, and strategy. One of the most famous experiments involved the sensitive plant, Mimosa pudica. Its leaves fold instantly when touched. A defense against herbivores. Scientists dropped water onto the plant repeatedly. At first, it closed its leaves every time, but eventually, it stopped reacting. It had learned that the water was harmless. Later, when shaken, it folded again, proving it had not become numb. It had remembered. This is learning and memory. Without a brain, even climbing plants reveal intelligence. A pea plant given to poles to climb will lean toward the one that leads to better light. It tests, chooses, and adapts in laboratories. Plants have been shown to solve simple mazes. Roots will navigate toward nutrient-rich soil, bypassing obstacles. Some researchers argue this is not just reaction. It is a kind of problem-solving and awareness of options. All of this challenges our definition of intelligence. For too long, we have equated intelligence with neurons. brains, and human-like thought. But what if intelligence can take many forms? What if plants represent a decentralized, distributed intelligence, an intelligence not contained in a head, but spread through roots, stems, and leaves, not quick like thought, but patient like growth? The philosopher Darwin himself believed roots act like a brain, directing growth, sensing the environment, making decisions, though not in the way animals do. The concept of plant neurobiology is still debated, but even skeptics admit the evidence of sensing, communicating, and adapting is undeniable. This hidden intelligence has practical meaning. 2. By studying it, we may learn new ways to design networks, robotics, or artificial intelligence. Imagine computers that solve problems like roots seeking nutrients. Imagine societies that cooperate like forests. The intelligence of plants may yet guide the future of human knowledge. And yet, perhaps the deepest lesson is not technological, but philosophical. Plants remind us that intelligence does not always look like thinking. Sometimes it looks like patience. Sometimes it looks like quiet adaptation. Sometimes it looks like cooperation across unseen networks. It is slow, it is silent, but it is no less real. What does it mean to be intelligent? Must one speak, or move, or think in words? Or can intelligence be green and silent, stretching toward the sun with steady grace? Listening without ears, remembering without a brain. A forest is a library of decisions. Every tree has chosen where to grow. Every root has tested the soil and adapted. Every leaf has measured the light and turned toward it. Every flower has calculated the risk of opening too soon or too late. This is not chaos. It is intelligence, woven into every fiber. Perhaps we misunderstand because we expect quickness. Plants live in centuries, not seconds. Their wisdom unfolds across time. A single oak may remember drought. A pine may send signals to seedlings. A vine may choose which way to climb. They are not thoughtless. They are simply patient. So, as you lie back and let your eyes drift closed, imagine the intelligence of plants surrounding you, the quiet strategies, the unseen decisions, the whispered conversations beneath the soil. Perhaps the green world is not silent at all. Perhaps it is filled with voices we have not yet learned to hear, and in their calm, in their patience, we may find a reflection of our own, an invitation to slow down, to listen, to grow. So we find that plants are not passive, not decorations or background, but beings with senses, memories, and choices, a hidden intelligence that shapes ecosystems and surprises science. But this intelligence is not just about survival. It is also about connection. For the intelligence of plants reaches outward, forming networks that bind entire forests into living communities. In our next journey, we will step deeper into the web of roots and fungi and explore the astonishing social lives of plants. A hidden society beneath our feet, vaster and more intricate than we can imagine. Have you ever wondered, do plants live alone? Or are they part of something larger? What if every tree, flower, and blade of grass is part of a hidden community? What if the forest is not a collection of individuals, but a living city connected underground by secret networks? What if plants whisper to each other, warning of danger, sharing food, even nurturing their young? Could it be that plants have societies as rich and intricate as any we know. Societies we walk through daily, unaware of the quiet conversations happening beneath our feet. Imagine yourself walking through a dense forest at night. The moonlight filters through leaves, casting silver shadows on the ground. You hear the crunch of twigs beneath your feet, the soft hoot of an owl above. At first glance, it seems like a place of stillness, each tree standing alone. Yet, if you could peel back the soil beneath your feet, you would see threads of fungi weaving between roots, a glowing, branching web connecting tree to tree, shrub to shrub, flower to flower. It would look less like a forest floor and more like the circuitry of a brain. Information pulsing, nutrients flowing, signals traveling in silence. You realize then, the forest is not many separate beings. It is one vast society, bound together in constant communication, a community hidden in plain sight. For centuries, we thought of plants as solitary, but research has revealed that plants live in deeply connected networks. The heart of this network is the mycorrhizal web, a partnership between plant roots and fungi. Fungi spread thin threads called hyphae through the soil. These threads connect with the roots of plants, exchanging sugars for minerals. But this exchange is more than trade. It is communication through this fungal web. Plants send chemical signals. When one tree is attacked by insects, it releases alerts. Neighboring trees receive the warning through fungal threads. They respond by boosting their defenses. The attack on one triggers preparation in many. This is community defense. Even more astonishing, plants share resources. Large, healthy trees often send sugars through the fungal web to shaded seedlings. These mother trees nourish the young, keeping them alive until they can reach the light. Studies show that nutrients flow preferentially to seedlings that are genetically related, a sign of kin recognition. In the forest, family ties matter. But help is not limited to kin. Different species also share resources. A birch tree may send carbon to a neighboring fir when sunlight is scarce. Later, when the birch loses its leaves, the fir may return the favor. The forest is not a battlefield. It is a marketplace, a neighborhood, a community. This social life is not limited to underground webs. Plants communicate through the air as well. When attacked, some plants release volatile compounds. These airborne signals warn neighbors. They also attract predators of the attacker. A tomato plant chewed by caterpillars may call in parasitic wasps, turning the tide of battle by summoning allies. Did you know that even roots themselves send signals? Roots release exudates, chemical messages, into the soil. These can attract friendly microbes, repel harmful ones, or signal to nearby plants. The soil becomes a forum of conversation. Every molecule a word, every scent a sentence. But perhaps the most breathtaking aspect is how these networks resemble intelligence. The fungal web beneath forests has been compared to the internet. Some call it the wood wide web, like the internet. It distributes information, resources, and connections. Like the internet, it allows rapid adaptation. When drought strikes, trees may share water. When light shifts, carbon flows accordingly. It is a society of sharing, balancing, and survival, and the consequences reach beyond biology. Forests influence climate not only through carbon storage, but through these hidden social systems that stabilize growth Communities of plants support each other in ways that shape entire ecosystems. Without cooperation, resilience collapses. With cooperation, forests endure for centuries. Even solitary-looking plants engage in societies. A single meadow is a city of alliances. Flowers time their blooming to avoid competition. Grasses share fungi that defend against disease. Legumes host bacteria that fix nitrogen, enriching the soil for others. Every blade of grass is part of a larger design. The social life of plants challenges our deepest assumptions. We often imagine nature as competition, survival of the fittest. But plants reveal another truth. Survival often means survival together. The strongest forests are those that cooperate. The richest ecosystems are those that share. And yet there is mystery. We do not yet know how much plants decide in these exchanges. We cannot yet say if they intend to help one another. But what is clear is this: they are not alone. They live in societies as intricate as any city we build. When you walk through a forest, you may think you are walking among individuals, but you are walking through a family, a city, a symphony. Each root is a street, each fungal thread a pathway, each leaf a window catching the sun, each flower a conversation with the air. It is not stillness, it is connection. The trees speak in sugars, the flowers speak in scents, the roots speak in whispers of chemistry. Together they weave a language older than words, a language that binds life in webs unseen. Perhaps this is the great secret of plants, that they remind us we are not meant to live alone. That strength lies in community, that survival is a shared story, not an isolated struggle. So, as you close your eyes, imagine the forest around you. Imagine its glowing web beneath the ground, threads of light carrying gifts and warnings, trees leaning toward one another, seedlings being fed in the shadows, the whole forest breathing as one. Perhaps in that vision you will feel a quiet belonging, a reminder that you, too, are part of a society greater than yourself. So we find that plants are not solitary. They are neighbors, parents, allies, and companions. They form networks of communication and exchange, communities hidden in soil and air. They remind us that life thrives not by isolation, but by connection. Yet there is another secret, still waiting. For these societies are not static. They move, travel, and transform across landscapes. In our next journey, we will explore how plants migrate, how seeds travel oceans, deserts, and mountains, and how the great migrations of green life have shaped the history of the world.